This week on RSBANDB Update, a rundown of account security and how to use authenticator without a phone. An update on RS Mobile, summer weekends are on the way, and a bug to end all bugs on Old School RuneScape. Finally, a neutrino that left long ago from a galaxy far, far away. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 679, recorded Friday, July 13th, 2018. RuneScape Go. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us once again for RSBANDB Update this week. This week is Account Security Week. Tanis is on vacation, so that means I'm doing the show on my own for an hour and a half to talk and monologue about everything RuneScape related. Actually, no, that's not happening. I did that once on like episode 6, but it never happened after that. Joining me this week is Sirion. Welcome.
I'm pretty sure that listeners would love to hear you talk to your tone for like 1.5 hours.
Yeah, and I think I could probably go for an hour if I had maybe something to read off of, or maybe something that I could interact with in chat, like if people were responding to it, kind of. I think that might be a thing. But, I mean, hey, isn't that what live streamers do?
Yeah, I mean, give me a game design topic, and I'll talk for an hour.
Yeah, there you go. And, we're actually going to talk about that this week a bit, and it's actually a good week for you to be here filling in for Tanis because, we do have the mobile showcase and whatnot, so that should be interesting. And also, amongst other things as well, which we're going to have a laugh about at some point, or maybe cry about, depending on your perspective. But nonetheless, Account Security Week. Is your RuneScape account secure?
Yeah, it is actually. For a long while it wasn't, because my authenticator just wasn't working. I thought it was a Jagex-specific thing, but later I found out it's not working on other devices either. So, yeah, it must be something with my phone. Maybe the internal clock is bust. But I fixed it.
Could be to that clock cycle issue you guys were having over there.
Yeah, not for phones. I don't think.
Oh yeah, I guess they would pull it from the GPS towers or whatever. So, but anyways, of course, what they talk about in Account Security Week is those who have their authenticator and bank PIN active are said to be the most secure RuneScape players. And if you log in until July 15th, you'll receive an additional 2 treasure hunter keys to reward you for being secure. So that takes you up to 5 if you're a Gold Premier Club member, 4 if you're not. And then there's also the daily customer support clue scrolls, which you can get, which I've seen some pretty interesting rewards drop off of, a couple mil here and there from some people. I think my best was something like a Bandos page as well. So that was a few 100K for just, 5 minutes of work, running around going to get these clue scrolls done. So that was good fun. And those clue scrolls also do reward you based on your total level in terms of the tier of rewards you get. So that's a good benefit for those of us who are higher leveled. And if you have the authenticator enabled, you will get a second casket when you complete these clue scrolls. So you're potentially getting 2 rewards for this. I always find it interesting when Jagex talks about account security because, I don't know about you, but I remember a long time ago, RuneScape was the game that people always talked about getting hacked in, right? And losing their data. And, in many ways, it's not a hack. It's a phish scam, which is phishing with the PH at the start of it, which means that people are lured into giving their RuneScape username and password away to an insecure website. And then, lo and behold, they log into your account one day, and then they steal your RuneScape information, which isn't good. So, I think I'm gonna just take a moment and go through some of my security tips, and then maybe you can do the same. One of the big ones for me with anything is to not use the same password for whichever service you're using. So if you're using a password on RuneScape, don't use that password anywhere else. And if you have a second RuneScape account, don't reuse that same password. And with that, you can have a very secure password, But if your email account isn't secure at the end of the day, that doesn't do anything. If that email account linked to your RS account is not secure, then you need to end up making sure that you secure that so people can't get in. So I would say
also at the start of the day, though, like all day should be secure.
That's true, very true. And I think that's something that people are slowly becoming aware of. I don't know what your day-to-day experience tells you about that.
I think it's a more general movement that, like, being online, like a lot of people currently online are from a generation that hasn't known any better. So I think the awareness is slowly growing that these things happen. We see it a lot in the news lately as well, things like hacks and all that stuff. Password manager is no longer something you have to install like a weird app for. Like, it's really readily available as well.
It's in Chrome if you want to use that one.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff. I don't actually recommend the Chrome one.
No, it's
really basic. It's not quite that secure.
Because it's stored on your computer and, it's linked to your Google account. So if your Google account...
that's not necessarily the problem. It's like, because you don't type your Google password every time you log into your computer to get to those passwords. Right. They're just there.
They're just there.
So that is... you're better off using like an actual password app that requires you to just retype your password every time you want to access it. Or like after 5 minutes of inactivity.
Yeah, and the one that is of course recommended for that is free is LastPass, or if you're a Mac user or iOS user exclusively, I would say look into 1Password, but that one is not free to use. Though I think there is a premium tier with LastPass, which is something like $2 a month and gives you a lot of extra features as well. We've talked about password managers before, but basically, if you're wondering what they are, you basically have one huge secure master password, and that gives you access to your password vault, which stores all of your other passwords encrypted. And then when you go to a website, there's an extension in your browser. You click a button, and it fills that login form. And that's effectively what these password managers do. And LastPass could do it for free, or you can get a premium account for a few extra dollars and lots of extra features on that. Which one do you use?
I use 1Password.
Yeah. I use 1Password as well, mainly because I got it a number of years ago in a Christmas bundle, the full those $5 app bundles you can get, and it's just stayed updated ever since, even though they have moved to a subscription-based model. So that's really good.
I had like a one-time payment, but I switched to the premium model because I like having like the online interface and all that stuff.
Oh, good. All right.
So I actually.
Well, so that's passwords, and I think keeping the password secure and keeping a unique password for everything is one of the primary ways you can stay safe. But of course, there's also something called two-factor authentication, which Jagex has, and we've talked about you can enable that in game and with smartphones and whatnot. Now, this week on the Weekly Byte, you can find it at youtube.com/RSBANDB. I did a bit of a rundown on how you can set up two-factor authentication on Windows without a smartphone. And, you might want to do this if you don't want to use your smartphone, or if your phone's going to be somewhere else other than your computer, if you just want something, just so you can keep your RuneScape authenticator separate from your smartphone. But this is an app called WinAuth, which you can find at winauth.com. And what you effectively do with this is you download the WinAuth application. It's free and open source, so you'll extract the zip file, and you'll get a small winauth.exe, and you can move that to your desktop or wherever you like. So open that up. Then after that, you'll log into your RuneScape account settings, and you'll go to your Authenticator tab and choose Enable Now. And then, you just follow Jagex's setup instructions, choose Setup Now in there. then you'll be presented with a QR code, though you don't want to scan it. So they have this other link on the side that says can't scan this code. And then when you're there, you'll be presented with a secret. You'll copy that secret into WinAuth. You'll click add, and you'll want to add it as a Google authenticator because that's the protocol that this uses. So then you just enter that secret code that you copied in. You click verify, and you'll be presented with a 6-digit number. Then all you need to do is you enter the 6-digit code on the RuneScape website, and then you hit finish, and there you go. Two-factor authentication is now enabled on your RuneScape account using WinAuth. And I bring this up every time Account Security Week comes up because I think it's a good thing to do because not everyone has a smartphone, and when two-factor authentication first appeared, that was seen as one of the barriers to it. And there were also at the time people who didn't want to tie their phone to RuneScape, but inevitably we're all going to be doing that in the future. But this is just a good way to access two-factor authentication on Windows, and plus it's a pure open source application, so that means it has a higher level of security because there's more eyes looking at it. So that's WinAuth if you want to do it that way rather than using your smartphone. I use my phone, but WinAuth is going to be a good option.
Yeah, and make sure that don't be careful not like just posting that secret code somewhere. That is sort of like the secret code they give you, just like the QR code. Like get rid of that as soon as you have things set up, because if people have that, they can get through the two-factor authentication really easily.
Yeah, and what Sirian is saying here is he's saying that if you're looking at this on the video version of the podcast and you see my two-factor code or you see my my QR code, you won't be able to scan that because I've changed my two-factor authentication token after I made that video.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like if you I don't know if most web clients do. I think Gmail at least supports also authenticator. So make sure that your email is like up to the same standards. Your email is sort of like once people get access to your email, you could just forget it.
I could not begin to imagine what would happen if someone got a hold of my Google account.
No, exactly.
So that is on there, and that is secured with two-factor authentication for me. I use it on many websites. Google, RuneScape, a couple others that I'm not going to name, Dropbox, and one other one that is game related. So, I use it in places that count, and there are unfortunately companies like Microsoft as well that used to support two-factor authentication through this same protocol, but now they've gone to a proprietary Microsoft app, which is kind of annoying when you think about it. So
yeah, like Steam uses their own stuff as well, and it's really annoying because like you have all these apps on your phone at that point.
Yeah, because the Google Authenticator is an open standard, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, so that would have been great, but oh well. It is what it is. So hopefully this little segment here has helped everyone stay secure on RuneScape. I don't have any other real security tips to say, do you?
No, I mean, it is really a matter of common sense.
Yeah. And, I think the biggest thing was, and I don't know if it still happens, but back in the day, there would be RuneScape websites that would essentially be clones of the Jagex website that would con people into entering their password. I don't know if those still exist, but they were a big deal, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think they still exist, but I haven't seen them much around lately. And like, especially when in the browser, make sure, like everybody's probably heard this many times.
Yeah.
Look, make sure you see the green lock and that's
exactly it.
Is in the green section.
Jagex limited, and you can go in there and you can see that. And what you can do further than that, if you want to go one step further, is you can actually look at the certificate and see what they got here. Their secure certificates are from DigiCert. They expire on October 20 on October 17th, 2019.
That's long.
Yep. And then you can go up one level higher to the extended validation, and this is the people who issue the certificate. Their issuing cert expires in October 2028. So you can see a lot by actually just going into the web browser like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to move on to the patch notes right now. A number of big ones this week, specifically in terms of Temple of Amanishi, but we'll get there in just a little bit. So starting off here, offhand augmented blood and third age dyed blightbound crossbows now use the correct model. Okay, I guess that was being shifted off to something else. I don't know why that would be, but you know, it's good that if you pay that much money for a weapon, it'll display as intended.
Yeah.
So, especially if you dye the damn thing. Ooh. I don't think I'd ever spend money on a dye to use.
I don't see the point.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if you had an infinite amount of cash, maybe, but
maybe if all of a sudden all my drops were max cash tax or something like that.
Oh, God. You know, we could be joking on that, but we'll get there in a minute. For the short term, while we wait for the avatar rework, Jagex has increased the resource buff that a clan avatar attuned with the skill plot bonus can give you. It was previously 10%, and now it's 100%.
See, this one I always find interesting because it's sort of a... I think, if I remember correctly, you don't actually get more experience with this buff. So if you do double the resources, you get half the experience per cap. So if you go to the Citadel for, I don't know, crafting experience is a common use case, you don't want this buff active. 'Cause you want double the experience, I would assume.
Oh, no, that's interesting. So basically,
at least that's how I always interpreted it.
So basically, what you're saying is that by activating this buff, you are limiting the amount of work you can do at the Citadel.
Yeah.
And you would get less XP overall from it.
Mm-hmm. As far as I understand how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I think you're right based on how the caps work, but who knows? I mean, if we're wrong, I guess people will pillory us because, you know, aren't we supposed to know how our Citadel works? All right.
Does anybody?
No one knows. No one knows. So, the message that your divination outfit has enabled you to get another memory is now displayed correctly when using the Divinomatic Vacuum.
Cool.
So basically what was happening with this is that people thought that their Divinomatic was making it so that their outfit wasn't working, but indeed the outfit was working, so they added the message to it. I really should raise my invention level to get that Divine Vacuum.
I was saving for the Divinomatic. It requires powerful components. And then one day I was like, I have lots of unused components. Let's just make like all the good stuff out of it that gives me a lot of money. You can actually make a lot of money if you have like unused components. Go check your bag and build some stuff.
What'd you make?
And I think I forgot what I made. It might have been augmenters. I don't know. But I had been saving like powerful components, a bit of a pain to get to, and I used up all my powerful components. So now I'm back to square zero in getting this Divinomatic because it requires 100 powerful components, which takes a while to get.
Oh my.
And I got rid of like 50 of them, so I don't know. That was a bit of a waste. I'm not actually sure if I made a profit over it now, thinking about it.
Yeah, sometimes that's the case. But anyways, continuing on, using Tier 92 armor will no longer degrade or use charge while inside the Temple of Amanishi. I'm trying to figure out what the message they're sending with this one is. Does this mean that they want people to get this tier 92 power armor and then keep running this elite dungeon for dungeoneering XP?
I don't know. I guess it helps sort of making the power armor more useful.
Yeah, because I mean the only other
particular
people
use
who are going to be using it are the high tier bossers, right? Because you don't need tier 92 power armor for Slayer.
No, you don't.
Tier 85 is good enough. That's probably even overkill.
Yeah.
So, tone down the flashy effects on serious transitions between conscious and knocked out states. And you always got to be careful.
We like flashy effects.
Yeah, but I mean, you always got to be careful with flashy effects to make sure you're not going to give someone a seizure.
Oh, in that case, I should get rid of like half the particle effects in RuneScape.
That's true. That's true. There are lots of particle effects that do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now here's the big one. Elite Serenic Halbergs can now be created with a full repaired Serenic Halberg, 420 ancient scales, 3 algorithm thread, and 5 chaotic spikes. Dyed ones can be made with the same process. So,
I mean, we knew this was coming. They have announced it in the month ahead.
Yeah, and you know what was interesting was the 100% reversal, that when the dungeon came out they weren't going to do that, but lo and behold, here we are.
I think my guess is, I haven't actually looked at how the skills have been doing on a G.
They weren't.
But my
doing
guess
good.
is, yeah, my guess is they're trying to sort of increase the demand to stabilize the prices, because otherwise you get this like the supply was pretty big, especially on launch. Like the supply is always going to be a bit bigger, but the demand is also going to be big because everybody wants to try out this new stuff. But who's interested in an outfit if you can't make the plate, which is the most, like the body bit is the most useful part of the armor.
Precisely. And you know, when I did my elite dungeon run, I got 3 of these scales. And, you know, they were going for 1.5 mil each on the exchange. That didn't happen. The grand exchange price ultimately did end up going down. And after this, I was able to sell them for 600K each.
Wow.
So, I mean, they did definitely spark a demand in this.
Wow. 420 times 600. That's a lot of money.
Yep. Yep.
That's a lot of money.
Because let's face it, you're not going to grind these scales out on your own.
No. Wow. Okay.
Right? 252 million. And that doesn't include the scales, the regular scales needed to create the standard Serenic Halberg.
I mean, I could afford it, I guess, but
I mean, you don't need it.
Yeah, I don't need it. Why would I?
For 14 mil, you can get a tier 90 Serenic Halberg, including the thread and all the scales you need to buy.
Wow.
And, you know, tier 90 to tier 92 is basically, you know, I think it was the fact it's not armor. It's going to be like 2% extra damage. So, I mean, this is a min-max.
I mean, yeah, power armor is not that useful, right? Tank armor goes for much more, I think. Yeah.
And, I mean, this is when you're trying to squeeze every little last bit of optimization out of your character, because the way these damage stats get factored in, from my understanding of it, is that they come in after, or they come in before things like auras and whatnot. So the auras are the biggest boosters. But
that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. A player will now be resurrected by the power of the Grow should they die after freeing Solak. I see they're still having issues with that bug. Fixed. Now here's a real funny one. Bladed Dive can no longer be used while in the Castle Wars waiting area to prevent people diving as sheep.
Diving as a sheep?
Yes. And I think everyone forgets that when you go into the Guthix portal in the Castle Wars lobby, you end up as a sheep. And I would have loved to see what this looked like.
Only if you're wearing an item from a god that is not the same as the god you're in the lobby of.
Oh, really? I thought it was random.
Nope.
Oh, well, you learn something every day.
If you wear a Saradomin item and you go into Sarak lobby, you'll turn into a sheep.
All right. I had no idea that was the case. I thought it was just something that happened in the Guthix portal that was random.
No.
Neat. All right. Well, now moving on to the ninja fixes here. For better or worse, divination memories have been recolored to match their Wisp equivalent.
You can't see me, but I am shaking my head in disappointment.
Yeah, and, we've talked about the accessibility of this many times, and I think the best one is to point out is the luminous memory in the desert.
Yeah, it is. I have pretty good vision. I mean, I'm wearing glasses, but it's nothing. And I have trouble making out, like, the shapes. And then the memories look almost the same color as the chronicles, so it's impossible to find a chronicle when they escape and you're doing a semi-AFK. And now they changed all the colors in the inventory. It's gonna be... I don't get it. The design choices here baffle me.
Yeah. I mean, they could have just left them all blue, couldn't they? They could have done that, right?
Yeah, or like leave them blue with like a shade of the color they're in. Like they can like sort of make it glow in color, or there's ways you can incorporate a color into a sprite without.
Or they could have made the little particle effects coming up out of the center of the wisp change color.
Yeah, or like have like a fade of the color in. It might not work for all colors, but yeah, there are solutions that are not plainly just change the hue slider on the sprites, because that's what they did basically.
Yeah. And this ensures Divination Disco will continue.
Divination Disco, yeah.
So. I honestly think the bigger problem is the actual wisps and not so much the inventory icons. So
no, that's sure. I just don't think it got better because of it.
Yeah, it's good for consistency, but it doesn't help their overall case.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm pessimistic, but I thought they checked all the different colors against all the interface backgrounds, like both legacy and normal, all that stuff.
Right, and I mean, like there's nothing wrong that prevents the game from being played with this. It's just a question of purity and ensuring that the interface is pure and is ship shape. Let's just say. So. Mm-hmm. Next up, claiming and using the Knight's Sword quest reward from the smithing lamp is now a requirement for the Master Quest Cape. All right. I don't know why that wouldn't have been a requirement from the very beginning.
Yeah, because they did change it, right?
Oh, they did?
Yeah, it used to be... like, I know that my character on Old School was doing Knight's Sword as one of the first quests because it boosts you to, like, 15 smithing instantly, right?
Oh, okay.
No, I think even, like, 30 smithing. Like, it's insane how much XP you get for that quest.
Yeah.
And there's no smithing requirement on it. You only need to run past some high-level enemies. So they changed that.
Except now in RS3, you need to have level 28 to use the lamp.
Yes. But you can reclaim the lamp later, but they never included that as a master quest requirement.
Oh, okay, I see. Interesting.
That's how it came to be.
Very, very interesting. Skyboxes and outer mapping have been added to Zenaris in the Enchanted Valley. Does this mean we're getting a Zenaris quest at some point?
I don't know. I'm still somewhat surprised that the moon has an atmosphere, but I mean, there's nothing preventing it. Yeah, just for the lore noobs out of there, Zenaris is actually the moon of Gielinor.
Yeah. Which is interesting when you think about it.
It is. It really is. I thought it was a fun touch.
I haven't done that yet. Let me go. I'm actually going to go there and have a quick look and see what that looks like. And we could have that as an option here on the video version of the show. Because, I mean, what do you think a sky on the moon would look like?
Well, very black. Or very bright, depending on what side of the moon you are. Yeah, I don't know. I think it... It looks pretty decent, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What do we got next here? The river through Edgeville and Barbarian Village has been widened to be more river-like.
Because that's what we needed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it's relatively, it was very creek-like or very stream-like before, but it actually does look like a river now, I'll say. But why after almost 20 years?
Nobody knows. The reason I was surprised they would do this is because they always complain about graphical reworks taking so much work because they need to make sure there's nothing in the tiles, and like everything that like clue scrolls that point to certain tiles need to be made sure that everything is moved and all that stuff. Like there's so much chance for things going wrong. The QA load on making topographical changes to the map is very expensive, and then they just widen the river.
I guess that's like landforming or terraforming or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels very counter to what I've learned about graphical reworks in the past.
Yeah. There's screenshot number 1 of that. Oh, and it's a blue sky on the moon.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a blue sky, and it actually looks like a summer's day now, believe it or not. So, I mean, it doesn't look bad. I'll give them that, but I don't know why the moon has an atmosphere, but it's a thing. So, All right. Well then, moving on to the next set of patch notes here. Following from this, the ground blending between the dig site area and the Sylve area has been improved. Ground blending in the exit of Falador has also been improved. The bushes in the Sylve area have also had their models updated to be the newest ones.
Cool.
And it is now possible to combine degraded silver jewelry at Murky Matte in the Grand Exchange area.
Cool.
Which, when the silver jewelry came out, those were that was a nice mid to low level crafting update that I think everyone appreciated at the time. So, just a reminder to everyone out there. And then finally, the cursed Ushtabi, which can now be created by combining something from the Camel Warriors with a regular Ushtabi, now is valued at a minimum of 1 million GP to ensure it protects over much lowered value items on death. So, there's the patch notes for this week. Not too much to write home about. I think the biggest one is probably the elite Ceramic Halbergs, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
From a marketing perspective. So, okay, so next up, RuneScape Mobile Playthrough Showcase.
Yep.
Yeah. What did you think? Just a quick run round of this.
I don't think anyone was surprised at what they showed. I think it was all very within expectations.
Yeah, it was very much the same as what we saw on last week's blog post about it. This was more of just here. This is it in action. So
if we compare this, like if you compare what happened between now and back when I tried it at RuneFest, obviously the UI is very different now. They redesigned that, but that seems to be the only real thing they've done so far.
Yeah, because they mentioned that even the battery optimizations and whatnot, those will be coming after that, after this. So They have been working on a few of them, but that's still something they want to start working on when they say they get to their faster development cycle. So
yeah, it's they talk about a faster development cycle. I'm not entirely sure what it means. I have maybe some guesses, but yeah, it sounds weird that you would go to a faster development cycle. Like,
for this, and you would need to, you would use a beta, and you would get to that faster development cycle. So maybe that'll become more clear as we get there. I don't
know. What does like if you have a new game, what happens a lot is during your first few months, years, depends on the scale of the game, there will be a lot of prototyping, throwing things away. That is how game design works. It's a creative process. Not everything will work. So in a way, they're trying to sort of find their way in getting the interface to work, I assume. So maybe when they say they go to faster development cycle, it means they have like all the tough questions solved, like the interface is there, the basic framework is there. At that point, it just comes down to optimization, fixing bugs, making sure everything works, adding content, all that stuff. So maybe that's what they're referring to, but I don't know. It doesn't really feel like they're doing anything revolutionary with the UI. If I may be so bold.
Yeah. The things that really stood out to me about this one was the redesigned combat interface. That I think that looks good, and it should work well.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because you and I talk a lot about the UI. We give the UI a lot of bad stuff, and for good reason. For good reason, I believe. And we believe we might even be able to do better, and we will prove that someday. But one of the things I've been thinking about as part of that sort of effort is I always wonder if all the combat elements should always be on the screen at all the time, which is a very difficult question because some of the combat things are really tightly integrated in your normal game. Like even skilling can damage you, and I don't know if the combat interface always pops up automatically when you go in combat. Well, have fun surging through the world then, because half the time your entire screen will be covered with action bars.
Right. You can't surge without pulling up the combat UI in this.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, though, I am interested in actually seeing a separate combat menu work. I think so. The combat menu is probably the thing that works best if I look at the entire demo. And what I'm hoping as part of this is that maybe the lessons they learn from doing the mobile UI make their way back to the desktop version.
Yeah. One problem I see with the combat UIs, their button to toggle the combat UI is in the bottom left, and immediately to the right of that button is one of the action bar grids where you can activate abilities. There are going to be people who accidentally tap that to hide the combat UI.
Yeah, I mean, even on the stream, they were mistapping things. That is sort of a concern I've had from the start. Like, it's so difficult tapping the right thing, and I have the same problem when doing Old School on my phone. It just everything is just too small, and I think the reason it ends up this way is Jagex has exclusively PC developers. They don't have any experience making mobile apps. They don't have any experience making console games. So,
and we even went out on a limb to say last week that they probably don't even have any in-house UX specialists.
Yeah, exactly. So what you have here, I think everybody needs to understand that making a UI for a mobile phone and making a UI for a game on a PC are two completely different beasts. They are separate entirely. There's a reason why if you browse the internet and you go to a web page on your phone that is not optimized for mobile, it's a horrible experience because that completely different things, and the same holds for games in any application. Otherwise, why do we bother with mobile apps in the first place? And what you see in this process is they're trying to sort of translate the paradigms of PC development to the mobile phone, and they seem to be stuck in that. Like, they're making some improvements.
I got a perfect analogy for this.
Go for it.
They're trying to put a square peg through a round hole.
Exactly. And they can try and like use like some of like the how do you call it, the rough paper stuff to get the rough edges off, and maybe it will fit a bit better, and if you push hard enough it will get through maybe eventually. But the best thing is to take the whole peg away and make a new one that's round.
Yeah, because the biggest things that came out of this release that they're showcasing here is that the buttons have been made bigger for both the combat UI, the interface, or the inventory, as well as things like prayers and whatnot. And the redesigned combat settings UI is there as well. And also on the topic of making things bigger, they made the right-click mini menus bigger, and now you can, tap and hold to pull it up, and then drag to select the one, and then just let it go. And I don't know how I feel about the tap and hold paradigm. So I don't know what better option there is.
There isn't, because you need to well, there is. We just start completely over. It's I think this is the concern.
To be clear, we're not saying start completely over with RuneScape Mobile.
No. Well, to be honest, maybe they have to. See, I am not sure if a game like I've said from the start, I'm not sure if a game like RuneScape translates to a mobile application.
Skilling does, I think.
You can probably translate the core game loop of RuneScape to a mobile app, but you need to redesign the core game experience to be different. It needs to be much less context menu heavy. It must, like all that stuff you need to completely rethink. And at that point, you get to the territory where you have to ask yourself, can we still reasonably allow crossplay between mobile and PC?
Yeah. One thing that really got me in the live stream that I was shocked about was that they said when it comes to they're looking at removing tooltips in the game. That is when you hover over an item and a box appears to tell you something. They're looking at largely removing those, but they said they were going to find a way to do that for the invention perks.
Yeah, we've talked about this with the bank rework. We had a discussion that so much of the game happens in your inventory, in your bank. It's such a heavy inventory-heavy game. And PC is the best platform for interfaces like that. I always find using a controller to navigate through menus doesn't really work. Tapping works okay, but you can't really work with tooltips, so they have to rethink a lot of this. I think they're very optimistic in their estimates. I'm just going to go.
Because from the sounds of it, what they want to do is they want to do one more limited test, then they want to get to a point where it's an open beta like Old School currently has.
Yeah. You know what they should do?
What's that?
Give Gold Premium Club members access.
With the caveat that this is a very early test and that it could break. You could kill yourself, but I think it would provide them a good amount of telemetry. And
exactly. Your Gold players are also your most loyal players, generally. I know that not everybody might have the money to afford Gold Premium, so it's not the one-on-one mapping, but like people who are willing to lock in membership for an entire year, those are people who care about the game.
Yeah, those are people who would jump up and down about playing, even the earliest of RuneScape mobile prototypes.
Exactly. And then we have this whole recent case of RunePass that has left a lot of Gold Premium players with a bit of a sore taste in their mouth. I don't know. It sounds like an ideal solution here. Good PR. Sounds like you will get some good feedback.
Because, I'm trying to remember who it was. I don't know. I think they did one limited beta of EOC, and then it went out as an option, I think, to the wide membership.
Mm-hmm.
And, granted, I honestly think that EOC was more dangerous than mobile would be, The only issue with putting mobile out to everyone is that you get people, potentially showing it off, like me showing it off here on the show, for example, if I were to do that, if I had access to it. And, you could potentially see something that isn't the most user-friendly. But, there's a simple answer to that. Anytime someone is doing something in game, just put a little beta watermark in the top left corner of the RuneScape gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually agree with that, because you can do these kind of tests with betas and games in general, and you can end up with two entirely different answers based on what Jagex thinks is going to work, and then based on what the players want to see. Granted, they're getting the core things down, like making the inventory bigger, making drag and drop work for dropping things out of your inventory, or pressing and holding on, the rock tail in your inventory, and then dragging to drop it out and whatnot. So, granted, they are making those things work. But
we're criticizing the app here. I mean, they have been making progress.
Yeah. It's steady progress. I will say that.
Like the combat interface, it looks decent. It's just like, I was looking at the redesign of the settings screen, so I was like, see, it's not ideal, but this looks workable on a phone. There was some clever decisions there. And then I was thinking, I don't think I've ever seen a mobile app with this many toggles.
Steven has more options than the settings interface on the iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably scrap the mobile part. I don't think I've ever seen a game with this many toggles, but like that game has more toggles than my entire phone settings screen, basically. And I'm running Android, so it's customizable as heck. And that's one of those things. I'm like, RuneScape is just not a mobile game. And granted, they had some success with PUBG and Fortnite, bringing those to mobile. I don't see what people see in playing those on mobile devices, but they have had some success. So
painful as hell playing Fortnite on mobile.
Yeah, like I just don't see what people want to do with it. And I guess we have to see how sort of long the popularity around that lasts. So I don't want to give up hope on RuneScape Mobile yet. It just doesn't sound right. It will probably always be inferior to the PC experience. But then again,
I got one thing that's already inferior to both. The experience on the Mac. Yep.
Yeah, that is true. Old School runs better on my phone than on my Mac. It is. I don't even know why.
Oh boy! All right. They did say they want to do it after they get everything all sorted out. From their high level stuff, they got to do a run through of all the quests, the maps, the achievements, the mini games to make sure there's no UI oddities on mobile. And you know how many achievements, quests, and mini games there are? That's going to take a long time.
Mm-hmm. I just don't see the point in doing usability passes on those if your core UI is still crap.
Yeah. And I think that's why they want to wait until they get later on to be able to make those changes with their faster development cycle, which is still a little bit baffling.
I think we need to set expectations here that this is not going to come before the end of this year. I think it's too optimistic. If you look at the current state of the UI, they're a steady process, but so much needs to be. You need to rethink a lot of things, and even they will bring out like a half-assed version. But I don't think they could get away with that at this particular point. So they need to delay it, which they might also not get away with at this point. So
yeah, we did kind of talk about that with Rune Pass, but you know, you tell me if you think I'm right on this. I am going to go out on a limb here and say we'll get a beta of RuneScape 3 on mobile either in late September or sometime in October to coincide with RuneFest. With the release,
I think it will be. I think it will be announced. The date will be announced at RuneFest, and I think it will be it's available now. They will launch at RuneFest, or it will be available shortly after. But I think they will stay a bit quiet about it, and then have the big drop at the RuneFest opening or something like that.
With a full launch of it in 2019, probably Q1, I would say, probably. Just based on how this looks.
Yeah, Q1 is optimistic, but...
Yeah. And, you know, keep in mind at this point that Old School is now in open beta, so... do you think that there's anything to be learned from doing Old School? For RS3? Like, interface paradigm?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not sure how much they're gonna pick up on it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on this? I think it was all largely focused in on the blog posts earlier on, so not too much else to say here. I was personally a big fan of the combat menu rework, the combat settings rework, and the new mini menus. Those actually look pretty good, so they're definitely on the right track with those.
Yeah, they're making progress. I just think there's still some big open questions they need to solve.
Yeah.
And they haven't... Like, I would expect them, if they wanted to launch this year, to have those questions resolved.
Yes, that makes sense.
By now.
Yep. All right. Anything else that jumped out at you, good, bad, before we move on?
No, not really.
Alrighty then. Well,
it ran really smooth. I think that's it keeps surprising me how smooth it runs.
Yeah.
Especially considering how much trouble we have running it on powerful Macs. Yeah, that surprises me.
A 2017 5K iMac.
Yeah,
has issues running RuneScape, but a phone is going to be just fine.
Because I had the phones. I know. The phones I tried it on at RuneFest, I wasn't sure what phones they were. They were pretty high-end. But I didn't want to make any conclusions, and I tried Old School on my own phone, which is pretty high-end as well. But yeah, it ran super smooth. I had no trouble with any lag. So yeah, kudos.
Yeah, that's something they said they want to do as well, as focus in on the optimizations of those. That comes next. So of the mid-range phones and whatnot. Be interesting to see what you can get it down to, like what the lowest device will be at the end of it. You think we could hope for an iPhone 5S?
I have an iPhone 5 running here, so I can give that a shot as soon as it comes out.
Yeah.
But that is an old one. That's having troubles winning the system UI at this point. So.
I have an iPhone 4 that still boots, runs iOS 7. Can be used for browsing the web. It's an iPod. I still love that form factor of the iPhone 4.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's enough of our personal feelings on this. You know, we have very strong opinions on what we'd like for modern smartphones to be like, but we're in the position we are in using our high-end large devices when I think we would very much prefer a modern iPhone 5 type form factor device, right? Running an operating system of our choice.
If something like that was around, and I would have to buy a new phone, that would definitely make it high on the list.
Yep. All right, so Summer Weekends 2018, that's also going to be here for July and August. The first one on the 21st of July is going to be Menaphos and Sophanum, And of course,
on top of the already double reputation gain.
No, that went. Oh yeah, right. That stayed. That part stayed because of all the quests if you've done those. So, city quests appear twice as fast. 75% increased XP from shifting tombs. 50% increase in the reputation in Menaphos. Increased chance to receive Metaphyte gift offerings. And perhaps one of the biggest ones, 25% increased Slayer XP in the Sophanum Slayer dungeon. Double XP from Plover bird hunting, 50% increased base chance to successfully pickpocket in Menaphos, and triple XP from harvesting luminous wisps. Converting memories will remain the same experience rate.
Yeah, so that's not.
That's not much to write home about.
Oh boy, you now get like 5 XP instead of 2.
When, if you're needing the most energy, you just go for the incandescence.
Yeah, exactly.
28th to the 29th will be Skilling Bonanza. Divination Springs last for twice as long. Enriched nodes will spawn every 10 minutes instead of 20. Fishing spots move less. For thieving, the Pharaoh Scepter and Black Ibis drops are going to be twice as likely in Pyramid Plunder, for those who still do that.
Twice impossible is still impossible.
Yeah. I think I got one back in the day when I was doing it. It was worth like 2.5 mil at the time.
Wow.
Of Scepter. Dungeoneering, double Dungeoneering tokens. No death penalty.
That is potentially interesting. The no death penalty means I will finally do my warped floors, because I hate Blink.
Yeah.
Blink is the worst boss ever designed.
Hunter 2 Origami spawn instead of 1 on the Uncharted Isles. Agility, higher chance of getting the pit. 10% chance to not deplete Uncharted Isle resources while harvesting. Mining in trees, replenish twice as quickly. Yeah, that arc one is big, isn't it? Crafting, 10% chance to produce an extra urn when adding runes to them. Okay. Fletching, 25% increased fletching XP. Smithing, double XP and respect in the Artisan's Workshop. That could be a weekend that I might knock out 99 smithing then. I want to get that before the beta arrives.
I might get some respect. That's the only thing I need there.
Yeah. Rune crafting, increased node spawns and double reward points at RuneSpan. Construction, 10% chance to retain a plank with the scroll of proficiency, increased by 10%. Cooking, chance to reduce food burn. And for Herblore, earn 2.5% chance to save a secondary ingredient while mixing potions. And, you can assume all these are going to, of course, stack with things like the well and whatnot. So,
like, every time they have, like, this skilling weekends, and I see, like, double reward points in RuneSpan and, like, increased node spawns, I'm like, okay, this time I'm going to knock out that level 1 esteem. I go to RuneSpan. I spent like 15 minutes there, and then I conclude, this is the worst thing, and I leave.
Yeah. RuneSpan is kind of
every single skilling weekend.
This is almost like a mini double XP weekend in a way.
Yeah. Maybe if I do it every single skilling weekend, one day, I will be level 1 esteem.
Oh.
Maybe before my retirement, but we'll see.
For the 4th and 5th of August will be Clue Scrolls. You get an extra reroll, improved chance to get Clue Scrolls from drops and pickpocketing. Jilly Willikers will be giving you a free clue each day based on your total level. Each Clue Scroll will also give a summer gift box with a chance to contain VIP tickets, Silverhawk Down, Tight Springs, Charms, or XP lamps. And easy clues will reward a gift box. Easy, medium, and hard ones will give a hard box, and elite ones will give an elite box. August.
That's a good week. That's a good weekend for your fortunate components if you need them.
Yeah, and that I think they're just going to keep pushing those value of those clue scroll items down.
Yeah.
So.
And then they have to introduce new ones.
Yeah, and then hopefully we'll get the alchemical onyx jewelry by then to spike those items up a bit. So you gotta wonder how many fortunate components are in the game at this point.
Yeah.
The 11th to 12th of August will be combat weekend. increased charm drops, increased chance of rare drops, and enhanced Ring of Wealth. That's interesting. 50% increased Slayer XP. All Slayer assignments will be treated as if they were using a VIP ticket.
Good luck finding Slayer spots that weekend.
Oh, yeah, we'll be using our own personal dungeon for that one if we filled it up. Shattered Worlds will grant an extra 50% anima if you haven't already been cashing in from the trader at Deep Sea Fishing.
I haven't. I refuse to use it. I utterly refuse to use it.
But I've gotten like 10 million anima from that so far.
Yeah, great for you. It makes things dead content.
I agree with you on that. Especially something like Shattered Worlds, which had such a hard introduction into the game. There needs to be encouragement for people to go back to that. 10% cheaper instance fees, ability to loot Mazcab, raids once per day, extra training points from boss training, and you may choose your boss slayer assignments over the weekend. Now, here's the one that everyone's probably waiting for. August 18th to 19th is going to be mini-games weekend, including the much-coveted Castle Wars gold ticket per game, regardless of win, loss, or draw, extra medal from Fish Flingers, double commendation points from Pest Control and Conquest, double bonus XP from Barbarian Assault. Bosses killed in Dominion Tower are counted twice for the purposes of reward unlocks. That's something else you and I are struggling with.
I need the pages, so the next one is more important for me.
50% Dominion Factor. Extra 50% Dominion Factor earned.
Yeah, which increases the drop chance of journals. I think. We think. Nobody knows how drop mechanics work in Dominion Tower.
Yeah, that's a sore spot. This next one's even a bigger sore spot for me. 50% Protoss points gain at Livid Farm.
Yeah, and they already halved like the requirements. I still have all those points that I never needed.
An extra 600 daily bonus points at Cabbage Face Punch Bonanza. 100% increased Menopause reputation from Shifting Tombs.
Maybe it will only be somewhat that content that weekend.
Double Zeal from Soul Wars. Shattered Worlds will grant an extra 50% anima and double points from Stealing Creation. And to cap it all off, from July 21st to August 19th, ports will be boosted to the 25 voyages per day instead of 15. 30% extra resources or trade goods, and the Barmaid Special will appear now on Saturdays and Sundays, as well as Thursday.
Hopefully you have a bit more luck this time around with your trade goods.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the market's doing after they changed how the scrimshaws are created. If the prices have gone down or whatnot, based on that. So, let's see, scrimshaw. Scrimshaw of, which is the good one? Scrimshaw of the Elements. Still going for about 2.4 mil, apparently, though it did take a bit of a dive from about 2.9, so we'll have to see where that comes in. So, yeah, but you're right. Hopefully I will have better luck that time. Though I think at this point what I'm interested in getting is the spices, so I can be making my own sailfish and rocktail soup.
Especially the sailfish soup is pretty good. It's not as good as Ancient Bones, though, I think.
Yeah. What were we talking about with David, where you said his soup stack was probably worth more than your bank?
Yeah. He bought like 25k sailfish soup.
Oh boy, these PVMers. All right. You ready to talk about the bug that is going to end all bugs?
I doubt it's going to end all bugs.
All right, so Old School RuneScape updates on Thursdays, and yes, we are talking about Old School RuneScape on this podcast, and the reason we're doing that is because this bug was so pervasive that it even forced the RuneScape 3 login servers to be shut down. So imagine you're just, running around doing something on RuneScape, killing a fire giant or whatever, and it drops a stack of fire runes, right? No big deal. But let's just say you had just had a recent RuneScape update. And this RuneScape update is going to change the way drops work. I think what they did was, rather than giving coins, there was a chance of receiving something they're calling a coin pouch. I think that's what the update was, right?
I don't think that was actually in the update yet. It's something they're working on, if I understand correctly.
Okay. So.
But probably the framework changes went in already.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically what happens here, if we look this up here on the actual update thread from this week, so pickpocketing NPCs, and what they did is that when you pickpocket some NPCs around RuneScape, you would now get coin pouches instead of coins, and these would have been stackable up to a stack of 28. And when you would reach 28 stacks, you would find that the NPC which yielded the pouches can no longer be pickpocketed until all these pouches have been opened. So these pouches were initially just supposed to be for thieving, and they were supposed to be stackable. So the content goes into game and, provides the framework for it. And then lo and behold, anything that is stackable in-game, whether you PK someone in the wilderness and they drop a stack of arrows or a stack of GP, or you kill that fire giant, it drops 2.1 billion coins. And let's just say a rollback was needed for this, because people actually went along and they purchased bonds with this, and then they redeemed it for membership. So this is big. I don't know if this is bigger than this is probably not bigger than the Falador Massacre bug, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. But it's the first time they ever did a rollback in Old School. So yeah, quite a unicum.
Yeah. So basically what they said, one of the team was implementing the code for the pickpocketing update. And this involved producing stackable pouches that are being treated as coins. And on death, the aim was to convert them to real coins so that any PKer could get the value if they were applicable to them. And when converting a stack of items into a stack of coins, it is appropriate to check that the calculation doesn't overflow the max integer limit of the game's language, 2.1 billion, as we all know. Unfortunately, the logic for this calculation used was incorrect, and when executed on stacks of other items, not the pouch itself, so hence the fire runes, the result was to convert the stack to 2.1 billion coins. Regrettably, although the pouches were found to be acting correctly during testing, the flaw affecting other items was not spotted, as it was not expected to have changed.
Yeah, you and I had a bit of a discussion about this, and I know some of the inner workings of Java OS. I don't know if Old School still runs on Java, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
So yeah, like I tried figuring out what exactly the reason was why this would go wrong. I couldn't think of anything obvious. We would need more details to sort of figure out how that bit of code works. But I do think this does tell us a bit of a story. So it depends on like the product, but in a lot of software engineering products, what you would find is if you have regular updates, is that you do a set of, you have manual QA testers who run through all the new stuff, but it's really common to also break some old stuff. So what you do is you have a set of so-called regression tests. So you run through the same thing after every update to make sure that you can still walk in RuneScape, you can still click things, you can still right-click things, you can still, like, all the basic stuff has to be tested every single time because you might break it. And as this example shows, sometimes you say, I haven't touched the code, it might still break because code tends to go in a direction where you can't really see what depends on what anymore. Because it grows so big. So I think what we will see as a result of this, or what I hope we will see as a result of this, is sort of the lesson that regression testing is actually quite important. But of course it takes a lot of resources. If you have to hire someone to every week do the exact same thing, that costs money.
Yeah, and you know, when they were showing off some testing phase of an RS3 update, they show that they do indeed have automated tests for that. I wonder if they have the same kind of automated tests for Old School. Though, I mean,
yeah, so that
getting a drop probably wouldn't be one of them.
Yeah, so that is sort of how you can get around doing this all manually. You can just do this by code. I know, for example, I found it really interesting. Factorio it's like a factory building game. It's really fun, and they had the same problem. The systems were so complex. So what they do is every night they run a test suite, which basically spawns really tiny worlds, performs certain actions on it, and then, because it's all deterministic, it figures out if in the end it's in exactly the state they expect. So every morning when you come into the office, you have like a list of things that broke, and you can fix them. So yeah, maybe that is something RuneScape needs to do as well. They need to like make like really small, like 5x5 tile worlds that have things in them, and basically like click on certain things and check that the state at the end is exactly what they expect.
Yeah, and I mean, after 18 years of developing the game, I don't know how they're not at that point yet. I mean, like, maybe it's a situation where unless it's something in the engine, it's deemed as not a complicated part of an update. Because they do distill the game down into something that they have called RuneScript, which is based on Java, but we don't exactly know how much power that provides the developer and what they have access to or what they don't. So that's why it's kind of hard to figure out where this is going to be. But based on this, it looks like the game was out for about 4 hours, which is
not long. I thought it was much shorter.
Let's see.
I think they rolled back only 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
20 minutes.
Update 14.20. There's still no time for resolution, though. We're preparing the essential work needed to restore the game as detailed. Update 15.10. The work to bring about the restoring the game a rollback is now commencing. There's no ETA. Update at 18.11. RuneScape is now back online. So it was about 4 hours. Based on the post here.
Yeah, but that was until the resolution. They might have brought the game online quicker, right?
Yeah, true. That makes sense. And they did do a rollback to about 11:30 a.m. BST when they did this. So, yeah, huge bug, and I don't know if we'll ever see anything like this again. I hope we don't see anything like this again, because this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So
one thing I sort of took, I just want to quickly mention this. It's not going to be a positive thing, I'm afraid. So what happens? Old School is down, and people are like, okay, let's check out this other thing called RuneScape 3.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
so you have these big streamers, Old School streamers. They log into RuneScape, and the first thing they get presented. Treasure Hunter.
And they would have membership, because you need membership to play Old School, right?
So they would have membership. They might even have authenticator enabled. They might have a bank pin. They probably don't have a bank pin, but still, they have like 3 keys. Maybe they're premium gold members, 4 keys. They spin, and what do they get? Oh, look at that! Celebration lamps. So what skill do you want to experience in? Well, nobody really likes construction, right? So they hit construction, and they use maybe like 2 or 3 celebration lamps. They're suddenly level 2 in every single skill in the game, and this is the opening experience of RuneScape. This is a basically blank character. That's how it feels to start RuneScape 3. And I saw that, and I think thousands of people saw that on stream. There were a bunch of swear words and a rage quit, like 2 minutes into the game. And This is not necessarily criticism from me on that. Not saying we shouldn't have Treasure Hunter, but I think this is a head scratch moment for the RuneScape 3 team, and I think we have talked. I think often people talk about how gold is slowly becoming less valuable, inflation, but I think there's also something in RuneScape 3 that I would call experience inflation, and I think it's a bigger problem than the gold inflation at this point. And I think this exposed that nicely. Well, not nicely, but I saw a little Twitch clip of that, and I thought it was so telling that I hope it reached the RuneScape 3 team, and hopefully they can get a lesson out of this as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the link. There's the link that you just sent. I'm going to play that. There might be some profanity in this, so bear with me if you guys hear this. I don't remember what the audio is of it, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking again. What? I just got 3 cooking levels, a range level, a magic level, a runecrafting level, a fishy level, a fire making level, a slayer level, and a hunt level. This game's retarded. I'm leaving. I'm off back on old school, mate. Neck it. What the hell is that shit? I just got 20 levels for doing nothing. Okay. That's why people don't play your game, dude. Are we back?
I think I have nothing to add. I think we give the old school community a lot of shit, but I think
it's like a moment of recollection.
Yeah.
And here's something a little bit different. Here's the Twitch stream of a PK shortly after the update.
Edgeville. I reckon we'll kill him wherever he is. Yes! What?
That was the sound of 2.1 billion GP appearing in someone's inventory after a PK.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think those clips summarize our discussion nicely.
And I mean, we're not necessarily anti-treasure hunter, but it's a moment of recollection, and we don't realize it because, we have millions of XP and all these skills.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, I will just say that everyone can head on over to Informer at informer.rsbnb.com and find Tanis's article entitled Giving RuneScape a Pass, in which he talks about Rune Pass, since we're on that topic.
Nice plug, Shane. Nice plug.
That's right. And I think that's it for the RS section, and we're going to move on to tech news right now. But before we do that, I just want to take a moment to thank our great subscribers on Patreon right now. And this week, we have to thank Adam T., Rory W., Cody T., Nora, and Fury. Thank you, all of you guys, for your great support of RSBANDB Update. It means the world to us that you chose to support this podcast, and allows us to continue to do what we've been doing. And, this week we actually published our first Patreon special entitled EOC 6 Years Later, the Monthly Bit. So if you're interested in that, you can gain access to that for as little as $1 a month. But if you're wondering what else you get with this, for $1 a month, you'll receive a special mention in the show notes, and you help fund RSBANDB for both the costs of hosting and production of the podcast, but also with this, if you want to step it up and you want to go for $3 a month, you'll gain a special VIP rank on Discord if you use Discord, a special mention on the podcast the week you subscribe, and early access to our show notes. And for $5 a month, if you want to give the ultimate gift, you receive a shout-out on the podcast every week and exclusive access to the outtakes we use for the RSBANDB Update clip show, in addition to all the previous rewards. So you're probably wondering, what are we doing with this? Well, in addition to paying for the RSBANDB Update server costs and hosting, at $15 a month, we'll do our bonus show, which is the monthly bit, which we just put out yesterday on EOC 6 years later. Sirion, myself and David gathered together for this one, and we had a really good discussion on this. So, I think we all learned something too, didn't we?
Yeah. So, I mean, normally the production cycles on episodes are like a few days because, like, the update comes out, we need to collect it. But for these specials, we have the time to really prepare them. I think we spent about 2 weeks on and off, sort of discussing things, and I think everybody came to insights that we hadn't had before. I think a lot of people got a lot of respect for each other's perspectives. So it was great. I had a blast. I think it was one of my favorite episodes to ever record.
And you said, if I had told you last month you were going to be on a combat special, you wouldn't have believed
Yeah,
me.
I would have laughed in your face. But there I was, and having a blast at it.
Indeed. All right. And you're
Quite a concentrated blast, if I may say.
because that actually formed a big part of what we talked about.
Yeah.
Did you plan that one out?
No, I didn't. I just make this up as I go.
And also, we are in the process of preparing to launch our video version of the podcast. That would have been this week, but Tanis is on vacation, and he wanted to be around for that. So next week, we'll be launching the video version of RSBANDB Update to all subscribers of the podcast. You'll get to see what we look like, what our virtual, production looks like that we've been working on. So,
I mean, to be honest, having me on video on the first episode can only go downhill from there, so that's probably not a good idea.
Really, you were the model for our production design, and I showed you what I mocked up based on that, and your first response was, "Wow, what a handsome guy." So you're saying two different things here.
Well, no, I mean, like, when I'm on the episode, like, everything that comes after that is going to be trash, right? I'm just going to do the show.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, if you want to find out more about all these, you can do that at patreon.com/RSBANDB. And once again, thank you to our great subscribers for making this possible. Once again, all you guys have done a tremendous job here at supporting RSBANDB Update. And once again, those names are Adam T., Rory W., Cody T., Nora, and Fury. Thank you. Thank you once again. All right. You ready to go for tech news?
I'm always ready to go for tech news.
And there's a reason we said go for tech news, and that's because this week Microsoft has unveiled the Surface Go, and no, that one wasn't planned. I'm sorry, that just... it's getting the point in the show where those kind of things just start... Okay. So the Surface Go is Microsoft's competitor to the iPad. It's a $399 Surface PC. That's a 10-inch form factor compared to the usual 12-inch. The market, of course, for this is those who just need a basic computer, those who are going to school and want a platform to take notes on. And for $399, you get 64 gigs of hard drive space, the same 3:2 aspect ratio screen that's on all the other Surfaces, an Intel Pentium Gold processor, 4415Y. Now, I don't know what that Intel Pentium Gold processor gives you, or how the video card quality is on that. So I don't know if it will play RuneScape like the other Surfaces can. But it's Intel HD Graphics 615.
If it were running Android, you could run RuneScape Mobile on it, but...
Yeah, you could. But you can have this right now, and you can run RuneScape on a tablet. So...
Nice.
Yeah. Obviously, I think this is a good move for Microsoft because it puts them in a position of being able to compete with Apple. And when have you ever heard someone competing with Apple on price for the education market?
I don't know. Apple's normally pretty expensive.
Exactly.
So.
And Microsoft had to come down to this level to be able to do this. So, It's definitely a big deal because, the Surface is... I think the main draw of the Surface is that you get a tablet, but you also get a full-blown Windows PC. Which, is going to be a good thing, right?
Full-blown is a bit optimistic, maybe.
Well, you're going to be able to use, all the desktop applications on it. It runs, it's not a Surface RT or whatever it was called that was running ARM. It's running an Intel chip.
Yeah,
it starts with Windows 10S. You can upgrade it to Windows 10 Pro. So it'll be the full version of it.
Fair enough.
And it's got all the other sensors that a normal tablet would have. So it's just a question of if you want the Microsoft experience. So I would think that this is definitely, well, that's loud, something that people would want to look into if they're looking for a laptop at this point of view. So I think this is going to be a good thing to go and look at, let's just say. Pardon the pun on that, but we'll have to see what the adoption rate is on it. Now, also with this, I'd like to take a moment and say that Apple has updated their MacBook Pro lineup as well with this, which is something that people have been wanting. Because let's face it, you don't want to be paying over $2,000 for a computer that has the 2016 chips in it, which is what they had basically. So those have been now upgraded for anyone who is looking for a high-end Apple laptop. I know you were talking about this at one point. What's your thoughts on this today? Are you still gonna look for a personal laptop replacement on this?
I still have a MacBook Pro 2012. It's the last non-Retina MacBook Pro. So that's pretty old actually. It's showing its age. So I think the new ones, the new MacBooks look good. I have one for work, and the keyboard is not great. I just can't get used to the touch bar. I don't know. It doesn't really show the direction I would want.
Yeah, and if you get a 15-inch one, you don't have a choice. You get the touch bar regardless of if you want it or not. Yeah,
exactly. So at that point you have to really think, do you want to spend, because it's like $2,000 at least. Do you want to spend that much money on
something that's not optimal for you?
On something that's it's not optimal. Why wouldn't I just spend a bit less money? I could go the opposite way and get a Chromebook or something like that. But I do like having my laptop stand as a device on its own. Maybe I have to switch to, I don't know, Alienware or something. They make really good.
Maybe.
No, you laugh, but they make really high quality laptops as well. And maybe at this point,
for laptops, maybe I would say that, but not an actual PC, because you can.
Sure, but I wouldn't buy a Mac PC desktop. There's no point to do that for me.
Yeah.
My prime use of my desktop is to play games, and maybe there was a day where it looked like gaming was breaking through on Mac, but it seems that is grinding to a halt.
With the OpenGL announcement.
And then with the OpenGL deprecation, that is, I think that's sort of, that's completely gone. I don't do development as a hobby enough to warrant the price of a full-blown Mac desktop.
Yeah. And I was in a similar situation when my last iMac died this year, and I seriously looked at one of the options would have been to do the show on Windows, but it just wasn't as smooth of an experience in doing that. And there are
at least you have a proper file browser on Windows.
I could talk about Explorer. There's lots of things I don't like about Explorer, and that is my number one thing I actually dislike about Windows, believe it or not.
Yeah, there's more things I dislike about Finder than I dislike about Explorer.
True. Just to give you two examples, I have some spinning, USB hard drives plugged into my Windows computer.
Oh gosh.
Why does Explorer need to take so long to open if I have these drives connected?
Yeah, external hard disk.
Why are the folders I want to search through not indexed, and why do I need to add them manually to that index? So those are the two biggest things for me. But
that's fair enough.
Yeah. And I mean, if there were virtual audio devices on Windows, maybe, but who knows? All right, so that's the Surface Go and Apple's MacBook Pro updates. This next story follows up on the Facebook news controversy that came from last year, and that, of course, caused them to axe the trending news section on their website. And, back in January, Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook would initially, at some point this year, be launching a news section. So this week they announced that they'll be launching their first batch of news shows that'll debut on July 16th. And they say these are going to provide, and I quote, trustworthy, informative, and local news. They're going to air daily briefings and coverages from various outlets such as ABC News. The formats and subjects will align with the outlets. So one outlet called Mike, for example, will provide complicated and diverse coverage that highlights the underrepresented, as well as you're going to see your favorite news personalities on there, they say, such as Anderson Cooper. They're going to have their own shows on this platform as well. And, one thing I found really funny with this story that in The Verge is reporting on this is they say, however, one of the most visible programs will be Fox News' Daily Digests, which will air in the morning and the afternoon, and including on the weekends. And, they say ostensibly the news push encompasses a wide spectrum of ideologies. And I'm just going to say to everyone out there, if you're looking for news, whether it be tech news, gaming news, or real-world news, I encourage everyone to read the full spectrum of news if you can, if you have the time for it, because that's how you're going to get all of the aspects of the story. And, they say the decision to highlight the highly incendiary and notably misleading Fox News at such a high frequency is particularly interesting in light of the allegations that they say Facebook routinely suppressed conservative news on the platform in 2016. That's the actual Verge headline with this. And you remember when we first initially started talking about this, everyone wanted an equal platform on Facebook, right? They wanted it to be an unbiased news source, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here we are. They're offering Fox News updates, and people are getting upset about that. And I'm just going to take this to say, I don't know, have you ever watched Fox News when you've been in the U.S., or do you guys have it there?
No, we don't have it here. I watched some of it when I was in the U.S. one time.
Right. And, if you watch the daytime programming news on Fox News, it's relatively balanced. But if you watch and you tune in the evening and you see any of the opinion shows, you're going to get an entirely different perspective on that. And I think that's what's missing from this article here from The Verge, is that, you can talk about news and whatnot, but if you just go to the Fox News website and you don't focus on opinion, it's a news source as much as CNN and MSNBC are also news sources. So I just found that rather funny in this article here from The Verge that they chose to highlight that when back in January everyone wanted a reasonably balanced source of news coming from Facebook, and here Facebook is surprisingly delivering on that. So we'll have to see where this goes, but I don't know. I don't know if people will step up to this. What do you think? Think people will end up watching these?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't use Facebook day to day, so we don't know how it's going to be.
I don't use Facebook at all. so yeah, I do think they should include more than one news channel source. I think
definitely.
It's bad to favor, to push one on there.
Yeah. They got the whole spectrum here. They got ABC in the center.
I don't have the context to make a call on this. I don't know how exactly everything is in the US channels. So I don't want to make any claims or anything. But we have to see where this goes. And I think we should maybe accept this with a bit more acceptance.
Yeah, I agree. Because that's what people asked for, and I will defend Facebook if this comes out and this turns out to be a good, balanced news offering, which is something that was a problem in the past. So, All right, our last piece of tech news goes into the science realm of it, and you might be wondering, boy, what's happening in the world of science? Well, it's been found that a neutrino that's struck an Antarctica-based tracking array last year was traced back to a galaxy 3.7 billion light years away. So this was a big news in the science field this week, I think.
So are you saying that the neutrino is from long ago in a galaxy far, far away?
I guess that is the case, but we're not going to go for that reference.
Okay. We just say that the neutrino boldly went when no neutrino went before. Happy now?
Oh boy! So basically, a neutrino is a very light particle that is emitted from stars, and it can be tracked down to things like black holes, star explosions, and whatnot. And the very fact it came from something 3.7 billion light years away means that the source that emitted that neutrino happened 3.7 billion years ago from where we are today. So, you follow these kind of news stories every so often, and everyone thinks of neutrinos and they're a relatively odd thing, but when it comes down to it, this is actually a pretty big deal that we can actually detect these kind of things, figuring out where they came from and whatnot. Now, what this means is that when you look at a galaxy, galaxies are big star-style objects that normally have a huge black hole in the center of them that keeps everything tight and orbiting around them. But sometimes they can, emit these particles. And just the fact it happened to hit one of these detection arrays is a huge deal. And I'm wondering what this means for science going forward.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not very up to date on this particular story. It might very well mean that these neutrinos are more common than we expect. So there's lots of conclusions we can make of it.
And
yeah, I think it's cool that we start seeing this. There's this time where you thought that all the cool science inventions and discoveries had been done, but if you just see what happens on a regular basis, it's really, really quite cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the biggest things that could come out of this is that it means that black holes are, more common than people think they are.
Sure, that might be another.
Which would provide, if we can find a relatively close one to observe, and I say relatively close in talking thousands or hundreds of thousand light years away, it would basically mean that we could observe them and figure out what might exactly be going on in the realms of particle physics and whatnot. So, once upon a time, neutrinos were thought to not exist, and that they were also thought to be massless at one point, but the very fact we detected it proves that they are indeed not massless. So that also means a lot for physics, too, because confirming that they're not massless goes a long way to confirming that everything in the universe at some point probably does have some kind of mass associated with it. So, All right. Well, that's it for tech news. We're going to move on to our skill of the month update, and it is our strength skill of the month this month. And Sorensen 57 is still in first place with 19.7 million XP gained 12 days into the competition. Parnassius is in third place with 16.3 million XP gained, and Jamo is in third place with 3.8 million XP gained. So Should be interesting to see what happens, given that the month is only half over, and it looks like Parnasius is on his way to overtaking Sorensen as Sorensen has stopped. So we'll have more reporting on this next week. You ready for some achievements of the week?
I'm ready for some achievements of the week.
All right, so starting off here, Easel got 99 Hunter on July 12th. Dark 59 with 99 Defense also on the 12th. Zookeeper 53 with 99 Summoning on July 11th. 1234 were cool with 120 Invention on the 11th. And on the 10th, Sinver with 99 Mining, and Sinver again on the 8th with 99 Invention.
Faragian Bard got 99 Cooking on July 7th. Then on July 6th, we have Sinver again with 99 Rune Crafting, and Sorensen 57 with 120 Strength. So that might be the reason that someone stopped training Strength.
Yeah, makes sense.
Wiley got 99 Construction on July 5, and Lin Su got 99 Crafting on July 5.
Nicely done, everyone.
Great stuff.
All right, you're going to educate us with a pick of the week.
I'm going to educate. I love educating you with a pick of the week. So, I was talking earlier about how making games is a creative process, and it is. It is a job that is very separate from being a software engineer. You might have some preconceptions about how it is to work for a software company. You might have some ideas how it is to work for a game company. But unless you actually work at a game company, like, you probably don't actually know. Yeah, like I said, we can have a whole discussion whether games are art or not, but games are definitely a creative expression. You can't just... A game is not a set of formulas. You have to actually think about what works and figure out what decisions you need to make. A lot of the time in game development isn't actually spent on making the game. I would say that it depends on the game, but up to the first half of the entire development cycle is just figuring out what is fun. And that's harder than it looks like. So that was a long introduction, but what I want to talk about is a particular book I read recently. It's called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. The full name is actually longer. Let me read it out. Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, the triumphant, turbulent stories behind how video games are made. And that's what it is. It's a set of stories. It includes stories from different game studios of all kinds. Blizzard is in there. Bungie is in there. Those are some of the big ones. But it also talks about Stardew Valley, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's in there.
That's made by one person over the course of several years. Shovel Knight is another indie title that's being discussed. And like they just go in they just tell the story of how these came to be and what the challenges are in the process. And it's super interesting because each of the stories has like a sort of a different lesson in them. And I think I would consider it a must-read if you are planning to work in the games industry. Not just if you want to work for a games company, even if you want to report on games or anything related. I think it is vital that you understand that this games industry is different from all the industry. It has its own set of challenges, and there were a lot of things from the book I recognized from my own process, the challenges you have there. Of course, I've never worked for a large games company. I've never actually released a very big game. I've never become successful with one. So there were new things for me as well, but it all sort of clicked. So I think it's a really good book. It's written by the news editor of Kotaku, so they know their stuff pretty well, and I found it a really fun read. Like it's very accessible. You don't need to know anything about games. Everything is explained really well, and it's not too long either. It's pretty cheap. goes for £5 here in the UK. Your local equivalent might be different. That's for the Kindle edition. Yeah, I think it's great value. There's just so much interesting stuff to it. It's literally the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are some things in there where your response will be that is really bad, that parts of the industry work this way. There are stories about big publishers just pulling out, and suddenly an entire games company is out of a job. That happens. Like, there are sad stories, there are success stories in there as well. Yeah, it is an amazing collection of stories. That's all I can say about it. I don't want to spoil too much. I think you just have to read it. It took me a few days to actually read it, and that's only like doing commuting. So it's not a long book, but it's definitely on my top books I've read this year so far, and I can recommend it to everyone.
All right, and you said about publishers pulling out, and that's a good reason why. Jagex not only develops but publishes RuneScape as well, is that there's that extra level of certainty right there for that.
Yeah, I think what some people don't realize is that often there's two different companies behind games. Like if you talk about
Destiny is a good example. Because Activision, I think, makes it, but Blizzard publishes it.
I think Destiny is made by Bungie, and Bungie used to work for Microsoft as a publisher. They made all the Halo games. Yep. And, the point is, a games company starts developing a Halo game, and they're all fine. And then the publisher comes in, they buy. Usually they buy like the game like the company itself, and they publish it. But at that point, you lose basically all the creative control. If you build a game mechanic and the Microsoft president says no, that's not going to happen, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and that is how indies came to be. Like they want a full creative control. Bungie became independent and then started working with Activision. Activision actually gave them full creative freedom. So that's one of the stories in the book, actually. It's really interesting to see how that came to be and the problems they found with it. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff. I think publishers have a lot of power in the games industry, and things like EA, Ubisoft, they're all the big publishers, but the actual game studios that make the games are different studios below it. I know, for example, like the Call of Duty games, that's two studios, sort of each makes one game every 2 years. So you have a Call of Duty game.
Activision, I think.
Correct. So you have one COD game every year, even though every studio only produces one every 2. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and I think the book also gives insight in that, and that might give you a lot of context in reading future sort of articles and just seeing how things goes, and also sort of understanding why sort of people are stopping to trust the publishers, because like I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The publishers give you a platform, but the publisher decides the game's not going anywhere, they might pull the plug.
Yeah, and publishers can also go away as well. And there was a publisher called Perpetual Entertainment, and in the mid 2000s, in 2008, they were working on a title called Star Trek Online, but Perpetual Entertainment disappeared. And thankfully, they were able to transfer the people who were working with the game and the assets of the game over to Cryptic, and then Atari then published the game. So you can see how big of a role publishers have in that. There was a gray period where it looked like this game might not go ahead because Perpetual disappeared, but the Cryptic developer and Atari as a publisher picked it up and launched it. So what would you say the biggest thing you can pick up in this book is related to RuneScape and maybe the RuneScape mobile talk we talked about earlier?
Very much the sort of the process of how a game comes to be. It's not clear cut. Like, you don't day one make a schedule. This is how we're going to do it. It's a creative process. So, like, publishers will give you a deadline, but you can't really have a deadline on games until you figure out what the fun part of your game is. And I think that's part of mobile as well. They need to figure out how they can take the fun factor on the mobile phone. And there's a whole section, like there's a lot of talk about crunch. Crunch in particular is the period of time before launch where people will work overtime, weekends. They will basically sacrifice their real life just to get a game done on time. And this is really common in game development. It's really unhealthy as well. This is why usually, if you're a game developer, you usually have this crunch period and then you take like a sabbatical or something like that. That's really common.
Yeah, when they were developing Amnesia on one of the live streams, they did say that they were actually doing that. Weekends in late, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's something that's called crunch. I think that's also interesting if you think about how that applies to RuneScape, where there's basically a deadline every week. If you consider that perpetual crunch, read the book and think for yourself what that does for your company culture.
Alrighty then. Well, let's talk a bit about what we've been up to this week on RuneScape. I haven't been doing much on the Herblore or Slayer front this week, but I did do a couple of clue scrolls, and I did get one where I got a piece of golden thread, which is the item that converts your Robin Hood outfit from tier 40 all the way up to tier 82. Granted, I don't know why you would do that, because you do need there are lots of other tier 82 pieces of armor out there, and you could just use the Robin Hood as a cosmetic. But that sold for about 15 million GP, so that was nice. But before, or rather after that, what I did is, do you remember the Scabbard Caves under Gutanath?
No. Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's from one of the Ogre quests, and you can go there after the quest with a lantern and, bring a pack yak with you. And you can actually go onto a very populated world and just collect cave nightshade there. So I spent, about 2 yaks worth of, about hour and 40 worth of collecting cave nightshade. Got about 300 of them. Used all the coconuts I had in my bank from all my farming runs. Used all the poison ivy berries I had in my bank from all my farming runs. And made weapon poison potions. Weapon poison plus, that is. And I ended up with a net profit of 5.7 million GP because I gathered everything myself.
Sweet.
So that was interesting. But beyond that, just the clue scrolls and, just the standard things that someone who's almost maxed does. Not that I'm trying to max or anything like that. So, how about you?
Cool.
Any RS news?
Not a lot, to be honest. I have very little free time, and most of the time I do have on RS-related stuff goes into the clan lately. We're working on RuneFest preparations and all that stuff. We're working on the survey that's going to come out sometime this month, hopefully. So I've mostly been focusing on that. That's about it. RuneScape related. I try logging in every day. I had a great week last week where there were no weird lamps or anything. I was enjoying that. No, not really. The things I am trying to sort of slowly work towards is I'm trying to unlock all the both the Scrimshaw recipes from the Ark. I've got one of them now. I just need one more, and I'm mostly waiting for the Tadget to be required for that. And I finally found the Stoneberry seed, so I'm finally going to be able to finish my Ark berries. I'm really excited about that, actually.
Oh, wow.
Finally finish that part of the Ark off as well.
I still want them to do something with that.
Yeah. Well, there's something. You can boost your stats with them, but it's... it would be good if it was similar to maybe like spicy stews. That would be cool.
That'd be neat. Alrighty then. Well, I believe that's it for this episode of RSBANDB Update. So thank you, Sirion, for being here. As usual.
No problem at all. Glad to be
Stepping in.
Yeah.
So we'll be back next week with the full video version of RSBANB Update. Tanis and myself and maybe someone else. We'll see how time is. But just beyond that, if you want full show notes, you can find that at update.rsbnb.com. We're also in-game at Friends Chat, Bits, Bytes. And, if you want to check out the Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/RSBNB. We released our first monthly bit, The Evolution of Combat, 6 years later. So with that being said, we'll see you next week for another episode of RSBANB Update, everyone. Take care.
See ya.